Hello all, welcome to the next video of Neurobiology BSc 656A. In the previous video, we ended by looking at the monkey brain. We went a little bit in detail on the sensory motor circuitry, how the monkey looked at the banana and went for it, and how is the brain enabling those actions. Now we're actually going to dive in to the brain tissue and look at the different components of that, like what are the different components of the brain tissue in this video. Okay, so now let us dive deep into the brain and take a look at the different kinds of cells. So the first thing that you remember or that might come to your mind when I talk about the nervous system or the brain is neurons, right? It seems like neurons are probably the most predominantly or abundantly present cells in the nervous system. Lo and behold, that's not true. For example, for every one neuron in the system, in the brain, there are about 3.75 glial cells in the brain. So that is how many more glial cells there are in the human brain, for example. So what are these glial cells? So glial cells are of three types. You have microglia, and you have macroglia, which are further divided into oligodendrocytes, and that are also called Schwann cells. That also form Schwann cells and astrocytes. Now, what are glia? So glia, the name came about because scientists initially thought they were glue-like cells that were holding the neurons in place, but that is not true at all anymore. They are quite active and they communicate with neurons, and they are actively involved in immune responses and so on. So for example, oligodendrocytes are neurons that provide support structure between neurons and between axons, as you can see in this diagram here, and they form the sheath around the axons that allow the signals to propagate much faster, and they also allow for communication between axons through these support cells. And these astrocytes and microglia are both involved in immune response. So if there's like a foreign body or if there's an injury, there's an activation of the immune response, and both microglia and astrocytes are abundantly present in those locations, trying to clean up, trying to regulate the environment, and like bringing the body or the brain or that particular brain region back to homeostasis. So those are the different kinds of cells that are present in the brain. Okay, so in this slide, we're going to focus on the basic architecture of the most famous cell in the brain, the neuron. So what is shown here is a typical looking neuron. However, there are many different types of neurons in the brain. So you can actually Google search for neurons and you'll be fascinated by all the different types of neurons or the shapes that they exist in, and all that. But here this is a typical cell, and right away you can actually see that there are many distinguishing features of neurons. For example, what is here at the center is called the cell body. The cell body also contains the nucleus, and the cell body has some projections called the dendrites. So dendrites are the projections that have synapses that are getting all the input information from the neuron on the other side. And these signals are then accumulated, processed, and then sent out via this projection called the axon. And the axon, in order to convey these signals to a different brain region, to a neuron in another area, it needs to propagate this signal without much loss and at good speed, for which you have these myelin sheath, which is an insulating fatty layer that helps speed up transmission and cut down loss. And the myelin sheath is actually made up of a type of cell called the Schwann cell, which also is part of the glial cell composition of the brain. And at the end of the axon, you have what is called these kinds of projections here that consist of terminals and terminal synapses that have transmitters or neurotransmitters that allow the signal to be propagated to the next neuron in the chain. So signal comes in via the dendrite, is processed in the cell body, is integrated, accumulated, and the final output is sent via the axon to the terminal of the axon, and then that releases neurotransmitters, which then impinges on the dendrites of the next neuron. So that is how one neuron communicates with another neuron. Now, in this slide, we're going to look at a few different types of neurons. What you will immediately see is that what we are calling a multipolar neuron closely corresponds to what we saw in the previous slide. So a multipolar neuron typically has multiple projections coming out of the cell body, and some of them are dendrites, and there is one large axon coming out of the cell body like we saw in the previous slide. Right? And this helps communicating signals from one neuron to another neuron. Now, there are certain other types of neurons, of which, for example, there are neurons called a unipolar neuron, and in these neurons, typically, there is just one projection coming out of the cell body. And there are neurons called bipolar neurons, and in these, you have two projections coming out of the cell body. Now, unipolar neurons are present in the cerebellum, for example. And you have bipolar neurons present in the retina, for example. But there are several other types of neurons too. There are neurons that are called basket cells, Purkinje cells, so on and so forth. And I would recommend you to go look for these different types of neurons. Just enjoy looking at those different shapes of these neurons that are present in humans, human brains, monkey brains, and so on and so forth. And also find out where they are and why are they present in those locations, and how is the structure actually aiding in whatever processing is happening in those locations. In this slide, what you will see is actually different types of multipolar neurons. This is an example that I was talking about towards the end of the last slide. And here they are. So you will actually see on the left is a pyramidal cell from the hippocampus. So these pyramidal cells are called so because of the pyramidal shape of the cell body. And they also have a long projection of dendrites that go up called apical dendrites. And you have certain other dendrites that communicate on the sides. And you have a long axon that is projecting down to the next cell in the brain. So those are pyramidal cells. You typically see them in the hippocampus, in most places in the cerebrum, and especially so in the motor cortex. So in the motor cortex, in certain layers of the motor cortex, you actually see really large pyramidal cells that may look like the one that you're seeing here as well. And below, what you do see is called a Purkinje cell. So now this is another type of multipolar neuron, and this has kind of like a wavy, dense dendritic structure, almost like a tree, and they are a very interesting type of cell that enables certain interesting computations in the cerebellum, and you would be fascinated to read about how the Purkinje cell enables certain calculations in these regions like the cerebellum, and what sort of behaviors do they actually enable. Now, I told you a little bit about how the axon communicates from one neuron to the other neuron, and this happens at the terminal called the axon terminal. And I told you that that is where the communication is happening, but how do they actually talk to each other? And this is the focus of this slide. In this slide, what I'm showing you is the neuron on the left ending in the terminal synapse, which is communicating with a dendrite on the right through some receptors. And what you will notice is that in the cell on the left, inside those axon terminals, you can see that there are these neurotransmitters, these red color circular or spherical balls that are being packaged nicely into what is called synaptic vesicles, and they're being sent to the edge of the cell, and then they're being released into the extracellular milieu. So these neurotransmitters, they can be different neurotransmitters called dopamine or serotonin or GABA, glutamate, different kinds of neurotransmitters, and you can read all about them, and we will probably also talk about them later on. And these neurotransmitters, they go and sit or impinge on receptors on the dendritic surface on the other side, on the other cell, and these dendrites then receive this information in the form of a change in synaptic potential, which is then carried over to the cell body, where it's integrated with signals coming from all the other dendrites that also receive neurotransmitters from this neuron or perhaps other neurons. So that is how the neurons talk to one another. If you zoom in and if you're actually able to visualize, you would actually see something like this happening several times a second. In the previous slides, we were talking about different types of neurons and how neurons may communicate with one another. And now we will move on to the next step, where we will look at one simple thing that neurons, when they're communicating with each other, can actually achieve. And this is a very simple nerve circuit. This goes all the way from the muscles in your thigh, these quadricep muscles, to the dorsal ganglion in the spinal cord, and back all the way to the same muscle in the form of a motor neuron. So what really I'm talking about in this case is a reflex called a knee jerk reflex. So all of you can try this out. You can sit on a chair, keep your leg loose, and gently, or maybe with somebody has to do it for you, where they have to quickly strike your patella bone on the knee, and when they do that, you will see that your knee jerks or your leg extends forward, almost involuntarily. So you will just do it. Even if you're thinking about it and you don't want to do it, you will end up doing it because this is a reflex action. And now what I'm going to describe to you is the simple circuit that is involved in this reflex. So what happens is, when the hammer or something, the object, the sharp object, strikes the patella, is that the signals here, the stretching of the neurons here, convey the signal directly to the dorsal ganglion in the spinal cord, and that projects via the motor neuron to contract these muscles to enable that flexion. And at the same time, they go via these inhibitory pathways to actually relax these antagonist muscles, in this case the hamstring muscles, to allow the leg to relax so that they can actually go forward. So this is a very quick response, which is called a reflex action. In this particular case, it's called the knee jerk reflex. So you can read about it, you can try this, and you can check what happens and how quickly this happens, and so on and so forth.